earthquake, so much action. Oh, look at all the camera shake, except it's all fake. Hey, you wanna see a sneak peek of one of the effects we're using in next week's video? Camera shake from a tripod, except this is real camera shake. Show it, look at how shaky that is, because it's real. We're gonna try to emulate that in today's tutorial. All right, so let's break down what actually makes camera motion seem natural when you're actually shaking a camera. For one, you have several different degrees of freedom for your camera moving. You have your wrists rotating in different directions, you have your arms moving, your shoulders and your elbows, and your body as a whole. So it's several different variables all attributing to the same final effect, a moving camera. So we're gonna try to emulate that a little bit with some cascadingly linked null objects. Let's try that. So first, we have our footage here. P on the keyboard, you'll bring up your position, and then if you alt-click on the stopwatch here, you bring down this secret code place to put in formulas and equations and stuff, except it's not nearly that hard. So you type in wiggle, because that's scientific, and then you put in two numbers. Let's say 3, 100. And what these numbers mean is that it's 3 times per second, it'll move 100 pixels. So if I hit enter, and now if I preview it, all right, it's rotating around, and the first thing we see is obviously I need to scale this up. But quick tip, if you say can't really do that, you can add in this effect called motion tile. If I apply this, you can actually increase your output width and height, and then click mirror edges so that whenever it gets close to the end of the frame, you get this kaleidoscoping effect. It kind of breaks down if you have too much motion, but if you have just a little bit, it actually works remarkably well. But since we shot this in 6K, I'm just gonna scale it up. So if I preview this, very classic camera shake in the simplest form. But what's wrong about this is that it's way too simple. It's moving, yeah, but it seems very clean and made by a computer, because it is. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually create a new null object. You can go up to Layer, New, Null Object, and you're gonna do the same thing for this one. I'm gonna hit P on the keyboard. I'm going to type down wiggle, and let's make this 6, 30. And I'm gonna go back and edit this first one to be 3, 80. So for naming conventions, I'm just gonna label this one hand, because I'm gonna try to simulate what it's like to, move your hand, which is kind of faster, shorter, smaller movements. And if I link this layer to that, now it is moving, but it's also tracked to this other layer that is moving in a different amount. And if we do this one more time, and call this arms or something, and link that null object to it, hit P, alt-click on the stopwatch, type wiggle, twice per second, move 150 pixels. Boom. Now they're all linked together. We have a little bit more inconsistent motion, lots of movement here, but then it kind of freezes here and then moves on. It's all very erratic, chaotic even. But there's no rotation yet, so let's make another null object and link that final one to it. Hit R on the keyboard to bring up rotation, alt-click on the stopwatch and type in wiggle. And this will rotate the image as a whole. So I like to just keep this at 2, 2. You can move it up to 4, 2, but I wouldn't really go much more than that. If you have too much rotation, it looks really funky. So let's try that. So now we have a little bit of rotation. I'm gonna call this one body, because you don't really have too much motion here, but if you're leaning, you have small amounts of rotation with your body. So, you can call it whatever you want. So like I said, this isn't as high quality as the real thing, taking a camera and actually recording something. But let's say you gotta get something put together in a minute. That's not enough time to pull out your camera and actually record something. You can do something like this. And as long as the shot's not too long, it's pretty convincing. In fact, the video that we're putting out next week on the main channel has lots of different shots with camera motion. And some of them have actual real camera tracks, but a lot of the others are really short, and it's not really worth our time to really go in and actually construct a real camera shake for that. So, throw on a few null objects linked to each other, moving at different rates, and you get the chaotic motion. That's inherently kind of natural in holding a camera. So this effect kind of breaks down if your shot's longer than just a few seconds, because the motion kind of stays really consistent throughout the entirety of the shot. Whereas if you have something tracked with the camera, you can have intense motion in the beginning, kind of calm in the middle, and then a little bit of rotation at the end. You can do that also with this method. It just requires more work. And if you have the time for it, sure. But one thing you can do, you can make another null object here, and then link your top null to that one. Now you have an actual controller. So now you can actually have baked in keyframes for position, scale, rotation. So some of the shots we actually used the real camera tracking data, but on a lot of the others, I just did this method because, it was easier and it looks just as good. In fact, I challenge you to find which shots are fake versus which ones are not fake as far as camera motion goes. And hit me up and see how it fared.